Hi, my name's Isabel, and I'm going to share with you the story of my life as I remember it in picture form. So, when I start out here, I was just a little girl. I was always a happy little girl. I was an only child. It was just me and my mom and my dad. And we lived in the city. We had a cute little apartment. We loved to go to church. I loved going to church and learning all the lessons and being with the other kids. It's always very important to me. And then later, as I got older, I realized that I wanted to go back and teach some of those lessons. So I got my degree in teaching and became a teacher. And I got to go back and teach in that same church that I grew up in. Later, I met the love of my life and I got married. He's a great man, and we had a really nice wedding and really lovely time together. He was in the military, and unfortunately, after we got married, he got deployed and he had to go to overseas. So it was hard having him gone, and it was really great when we got to talk over the computer off and on. So when we got married, we moved in with his mom. And so we lived there. And while he was gone, I lived with them. And they were wonderful. They were my family. We were all very close. One night, while he was still overseas, I went out with friends and just went to some dancing, was out. It was fun. It was a good time, but I kind of got tired and I wanted to go home. So, my friends were kind of like trying to get me to stay, and I decided that I wanted to go anyway and then I would be fine. I was used to being in the city. So I took the subway and I went to go home, and the craziest thing happened. I didn't I didn't really understand what was happening, but I saw an angel in the subway. It was so weird, so surreal. It was very white, and I just saw the angel come through. And later I tried to tell people about it, but I couldn't even really explain what that was like. And then the worst thing happened. After that, my husband was killed while he was overseas right before he got to come home and see me, which was just so heartbreaking. And I just can't believe I'm never going to get to see him again. I was still living with his family and continued to be there to support me since I was grieving and been so sad. And while I was living there, I started feeling sick, and I went to the doctor and I found out I was pregnant. And that was pretty shocking because my husband had been gone for close to a year. I was still excited. And then I remembered that it must have been that angel in the subway, that this was a miracle from God, that was happening to me. But when I went back and told his family of the miracle, they didn't believe me. So they made me move out, and I had to move back in with my mom and dad, which was fine at first, except for once I moved back, I kept having these images of this cowboy. This cowboy kept coming into mind, and I don't know why I kept thinking about it. It just kept suddenly coming into focus. And then I had some kind of like memories or little flashbacks to being a little girl, but being not the happy little girl that I had remembered being. And I remember I kept trying to go back. I kept thinking, how can I go back and help this little girl? So I kept trying, even in dreams and things. I kept going back and trying to mother this little girl. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And I would see the angel when I was walking down the street, and I couldn't get away from it. And then out of the blue, I started having other flashbacks. I remembered the subway again that night that I saw the angel, and I kept remembering little pieces of it, like my high heels. My heel broke that night. And then I remembered that my wedding band had fallen off. It was too big. I had been meaning to get it sized and it fell off. And then I remembered something awful. It wasn't the great memory that I had seen of the angel. It was a horrible, horrible memory of this brutal man who came up behind me and he pulled up my skirt and he raped me. And I didn't have any control. I guess at first the angel had kind of saved me from remembering that. But now I know that that's what happened. And I had a knife in my bag because my friend had given it to me to be safe in the subway. I had such rage that I stabbed him in the back and he fell onto the subway platform. And I didn't remember that till later. Once that happened, everything kept rushing back to me. I remembered being a very sad little kid, very afraid, very, very powerless. Like, again, no one would help me. And that picture that I had in my mind of that happy family, that wasn't real. My dad wasn't a nice man. He would do things to me and I couldn't make him stop. And I expected my mom to help me and she didn't. She acted like it wasn't happening, but I know she knew. I blame her for that. And after that, it only got worse. Once I remembered all that, the flashbacks wouldn't stop. All I could think about was his cowboy boots. My dad, that's what he wore back then. And his hat. And his cologne. I could smell it. And I kept hearing the sound of his zipper. And I couldn't sleep at night. And I couldn't function. I couldn't do anything anymore. I was really starting to lose it. I was really falling apart. And I remembered that, I don't know what to do with all this. And yet I'm pregnant. And that's a miracle in spite of how it got there. I believe in God and I believe God gave me this baby for a reason. And I want to give this baby a different life than the one I had. So I knew it was time. It was time to go get some help. It was time to talk to someone. So I got a therapist and we spent a lot of time talking. And we spent a lot of time unraveling my flashbacks into this story. Because before it was just pictures. It was just little pieces. And I didn't know why it was important to remember all these awful things, but she said it was, and it has been, because the more I remember it as it happened, it stops coming at me today. It stops coming when I don't want to think about it. It's a terrible memory. My father was a bad man. My mom didn't protect me. And that's unfortunate. That's my past. And I'm changing my story moving forward. I lost my husband, but I'm going to create a new life. I'm going to create a new story. That's what my therapist helped me understand. She helped me learn how to calm myself down when I feel triggered, when I smell any kind of cologne, or when I hear these things that remind me of those times when I was young and nobody helped me. She helped me learn how to breathe different and how to go into a quiet space and look around and remember that I'm here in the present and I'm safe. I've been healing slowly. I take long walks in the park and I breathe and I try to meditate. I've even tried a little yoga as much as I can with the baby. Just always try to remember that I'm safe now. Bad things happened in my past, but that's not my present. And now I look forward also to my future. I have this little apartment picked out that I'm trying to get for me and the baby. It has a green grassy yard outside. And I want us to be there so she can play in the grass and have a good childhood. I imagine me as a mom with a little baby. And then as a little girl, going to have a girl. And even as she turns into a teenager, an adult, I know I have to keep myself together so that I can mother her better than I was mothered. And that's why this is so important. And I still have a good relationship with God. We pray a lot. I talk to God a lot. And we know that I've been through a lot, but I can create a really good life moving forward because the past is now in the past. It doesn't creep up on me like it used to. And that was all because of my therapy work. It really, really changed my life. And this is my story.